All right, preparing to live stream the meeting. Every day become more technically powerful. Okay, we're up. Oh wow, it's us. Okay,
All right.
we did it.
We did it. We are not just podcasters, but we are
How
live
how
streamers.
many leftists does it take to figure out YouTube Live?
I guess just one because you
I
you did
guess. I
this.
guess. I was sharing credit though in this
Yeah.
comradely spirit.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, I got it before. Dominique's gonna be here in a few minutes. So I was up early this morning. This is unrelated. Everyone who's watching this, unrelated to the actual content of what we're gonna be covering. But so I had a media tour to do today in the city, and I had to be up at like 3:30 in the morning to catch a 5 o'clock train and still get ready for everything. And like, that feeling when like everyone's asleep, but there's like those few people out on the road like driving and you're one of them, and it feels like jazzy and kind of like noir, and you're like everything's kind of mysterious.
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot what that felt like until this morning. I don't know, I felt like I had entered a new zone, which I guess we are about to. So it was a portent of the future, I suppose.
Yeah, you're your own neo-noir
I know.
protagonist.
I love those mornings where I don't know, you feel like you're like kind of friends with the people. Like someone turns left and you're about to turn right, and it's like you're the only two people on the road, and it's 4 in the morning. You're like, whatever we're up to, everyone else is gonna find out about it when they wake up when it's too late.
Yeah, man.
Good.
So how does New York feel aside from
I think most people are grateful for this thing to be over. I'll be quite honest, which it's not really. I mean, like,
I don't know,
we're
it was like the gift that kept on giving for me.
so
I'm sad it's over.
we're like we're gonna get a snapshot of where things stand. I think after first round votes are counted. I think it could be at least a week while they go through the multiple rounds.
Oh
Uh,
no.
yeah. So, but we'll at least get a snapshot of who people voted, like who people put as their first choice. We'll have a snapshot of that. But after that, it's off to the races.
Up to the races, baby. So what's your prediction, Gerald?
I mean, my prediction, like for the winner of tonight, like the first place vote getter would have to be Adams, um, because everything's awful, everything is bad. I learned a lot from this primary. The reason, like, when you were like, "Oh, should we do something on mayoral primary?" I was definitely down to do that because I feel like this primary has been very instructive for lessons for like whatever amalgam of people you want to throw in, like progressives, lefties, socialists, what have you. What is to be done during the Biden era, the era of the Great Quiet? And the lesson
Vote,
I
vote,
took,
vote for corporate pro-police state cops who
yeah,
weaponize identity politics. Is that what we should?
basic, yes. Don't be a clown. That's what I learned. Just don't be a clown. Don't clown yourself. Don't try to clown your own supporters. Don't try to clown the mentally ill.
Have a
Uh,
have a have a son who you can, fall back on
yeah.
if you
be
ever
bro,
get
be,
some trouble related to your residency.
or just learn from the best and be brothers with Chris Cuomo, and then nothing can touch you ever. Um, no, like there are lessons to be learned. Like I'm quickly finding that the whole like progressive, quote unquote, like ideological frameworks are not very useful in trying to determine like a political leader. Like Bill De Blasio. So we can get started, I guess. But Bill, you
Well,
know,
we're live, Gerald.
all right, Bill De Blasio. For those who don't know, our big boy. If you're in Miami, you know him as Comrade Bill, who went down to Miami
Bill
International
Bill Ted
Airport.
Lasso.
Yes, gave a rousing speech, which was quickly condemned by one, past guests. All due respect, Juan Cuba and Senator Aneta Tadeo, for going down to Miami International Airport and giving a speech that ended with "Hasta la victoria siempre." But you would think, oh wow, that's a pretty radical guy. When push came to shove on Amazon's HQ2, was as thirsty as anyone for like an oligarch to come to town and just remake Long Island City into his own yeah, like white collar playground.
He was
Like
not doing Cuban style revolutionary politics or Bolivarian revolutionary
he was
politics.
not summoning a red guard. He was not. Yeah, he was not doing any great leaps in any direction.
He was not forcing Amazon, proponents to do Mao style self-criticism.
Right. Which is to say, like any mayor, like who you're like banking, like for example, like Maya Wiley has parallels, I think, with Bill de Blasio in that she's known as the progressive option and she's surging at the right time. And she's backed by 1199, the healthcare workers union for SEIU. That was the,
But
that was,
BJ endorsed Adams, right?
32BJ endorsed Adams early in March. I mean, he went early in.
Little split in the family.
There like people have split, different way. Like there were some like the Teamsters, I think, went for Stringer. The U of T went for Stringer. Like you said, I think the hotel workers union went for Adams. Labor was really split between Adams and Stringer. And if you're using just that as your metric of if a candidate is good, you would come away thinking that Adams and Stringer were equally good options ideologically, and that could not be further from the truth. I mean, it's kind of made the rounds now, but Rudy Giuliani gave his, half-throated endorsement of the Adams campaign, saying like of all the Democrats, Eric Adams, he gives us some hope for the future, which is to say,
don't vote for that guy.
Well, yeah, like don't do that. Like just going by who are the unions getting behind in New York City, where I think 1/3 of primary voters are union households, is not your best metric for who's going to be the best person for New York City or any city. Eric Adams is the most militantly pro police. Talks a big game about we need affordable housing, but has, like most, big city politicians, is in the pocket of real estate interests and property developers, property managers. The charter school industry is behind them. All the usual suspects for big city politics in the neoliberal era are behind Adams. And wants to basically be the guy who beat back on the defund the police movement and kind of run like a hard hat, like Archie Bunker style, kind of a Trump, what if the Democrats were kind of Trumpy, actually followed through on yeah, we're not going to fight public sector employee unions because especially after Lehman Brothers has imploded, fighting against workers from the mayoral position is toxic and poisonous, but we're going to do all the other things. We're going to, accelerate the process of gentrification. Adams will be thrilled if there's an HQ3 and he has his shot of bringing the third Amazon headquarters to town.
Or will it be unionized?
Yeah, exactly. And will it be, will there be, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Will bring lots of consultants.
Yeah. Will we have a diverse underclass? Will we have a diverse, if we get to the Blade Runner society, will both, the people who live up in space be diverse? Will the people who live down below be diverse also? I mean, it's bleak. It's bleak because it's working. His whole thing with cops was we just need more black and brown cops and more cops that live in the areas.
The only thing that makes me feel a little better about this, and I know it's not the case, but I was listening to Chapo today and they were talking about how it doesn't fucking matter who the mayor is kind of. I mean, it
set
does,
yourself free.
The system is already in place and none of these fucking clowns are going to really organize or legislate against it. On really the New York mayor is just the weirdest person in town who everybody just makes fun of.
Pretty much.
like that's kind of like what Mike Bloomberg was. That's kind of what like Bill de Blasio was, just like a fucking weirdo who everyone hates and loves to make fun of. And like that's kind of what you're gonna get with Eric Adams. Just like a dude that you can dunk on about like, like pretending that he wears like Jordans when it's clearly his son. Hey, woo.
Hey, Dominique.
Hi.
We were
I came in at the right time.
yeah, we were saying how it doesn't really matter how we slide into apocalypse as long as it's funny, essentially, which on that metric, all the candidates have far surpassed expectations.
Some more than others.
Yeah. But so I brought up, the example of de Blasio going down to Miami International Airport and giving his Hasta la Victoria Siempre speech back when he was running for president. This contrasted with his thirsty pitch to Bezos during the HQ2 thing for Long Island City, which, essentially, like Tomas was saying, does it really matter who the mayor is, because the forces that run our big cities in industrial, like in neoliberalism, are basically property managers, financial institutions, securities firms, etc. Like, how much will it really matter? Probably not much. But I'll say this: I wanted to give my most contrarian take, because I know it's popular to dunk on de Blasio because he's like a 7-foot doofus and like made it like a point of showing up late to everything, including like 9/11 events, which, like, Jesus Christ, if you're the mayor of New York.
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's a story I heard. Like, so this is a story. Full disclosure, de Blasio, please don't sue. This is a story I heard that I'm repeating. But
that's the key word you have to say here.
Yeah, allegedly,
allegedly.
in Minecraft, but also I'm going to repeat what I was told.
Yeah.
So in Rockaway, they have a 9/11 memorial for the firefighters, because a lot of the firefighters that died in 9/11 were Rockaway, Queens residents. And this was at the time where the ferry service that Bloomberg instituted during Sandy wasn't being commissioned anymore, because the city at that time said with recovery efforts it had become too expensive to keep a ferry service going just for Rockaway. But everyone really liked the ferry service, so they were sad to see it go. And on 9/11, I forget which 9/11 it was, they all blur together in my mind. The mayor showed up not just late, but on one of the decommissioned ferries that everyone was so sad to see gone. And when they asked him why, he said it's just such a convenient way to get back and forth between Rockaway and Manhattan. And everyone was like, yeah, that's kind of why we were sad to see it go. So that's Bill de Blasio for you. But I still...
My favorite Bill de Blasio story is simple. It's that one time where like they gave him a groundhog and he dropped it, and he's so tall that the fall killed the groundhog.
Yeah, I remember that. Don't mean to laugh, but
he murdered a groundhog because he's so fucking sloppy and tall. That's what I'm telling you. The New York mayor is just a guy that's just fucking awkward and doesn't do anything, and everybody just makes fun of.
Well, so that's what I wanted to say, because I think this will be forgotten. But de Blasio's one promise that he made when he was running was universal pre-K, because when he was running, only half of all eligible kids were actually going to pre-K. And he wanted to make it a material reality that if you're a child in New York City, you can go to pre-K too, no matter what your background is. Mm-hmm. And got that done. And
that's great.
In very short order too. Muscled it through. You can read a New Yorker article from 2017 where they were this, one of the great accomplishments, a national model for how you can get.
And then he just relaxed after
that. And then
so where was it go for me?
And then the cops doxed his daughter during the height of BLM protesting last year, and he was like, "Come on, guys, we can all get along here."
That was so wild.
Yeah,
I was watching that in real time. People were quote tweeting because they tweeted it out, and people were quote tweeting the tweet, and then like the next day he's like, we thank our like first responders and like keeping streets safe. And I was like, what hold do they have on you? Like your daughter could have been in like legitimate danger, and this is like the last or like the first line of I don't know what the thin blue line represents, but whatever. They're supposed to be defense, right? So what happens when the defense is the one that's putting you out there? Like that's very scary. And I was like, what, why? Like I would say at least something shady. I would be real shady. I at least wouldn't like be as like supplicant as he was the day after his daughter was doxxed.
Like there's some stuff you can do to make things better, but I ultimately would agree that like any like the goal for right now is still the goal from 2016, which is any like deeply blue area that's represented by a corporate or centrist Democrat, and it's just within the realm of electoral politics, just like replace them with someone like that's on the left and not co-opting leftist language from the heights of like an NGO perch, but like is actually like in the dirt with their comrades and workers and what have you. We can get, I don't know, Dominique, like what were the lessons you learned like from this primary? Like what, like if you were like this might like let's say for the people listening to this, wherever they're listening to it from, and they're gonna have progressives and lefties and socialists running for office in their area, what would you say like learn from our mistakes? Like what were the mistakes you learned from this primary?
Well, I mean, we talked a bit about this, but and I still like I'm not gonna like cast any aspersions or like judgments because I still just like don't even know what happened with the Morales campaign. But I would say start a union first and foremost. And maybe not wait until you're 4 weeks out from the primary to then have these demands. And I'm not saying like workers don't ask or like don't collectivize. That is not at all what I'm saying. But I'm saying that like if you of course are a leftist or socialist running, that would be one of the things that I would feel you would prioritize and that so that it wouldn't be a point of contention. Yeah, it wouldn't be a point of contention later on, you know what I mean? So that's something I would say that I learned, is that I would first and foremost start off on the foot of workers' rights for the people who work for me.
There you go.
Or work with me rather, because collective again. I was about to be boss girl. Yeah, real-time self-grit. I said boss girl boss. Yeah, I was gonna girl boss on Red Tide. What else have I learned? I guess like one thing that was really surprising is I guess the changing politics around Palestine, because it seems like it was very calculated for Andrew Yang to, stand in support of Israel, and then that kind of like blew up in his face. And that was really surprising to me because I was like, well, yeah, that's a line everyone says, what's that, like it's a special relationship. Like that's literally, you can do a supercut of like politicians from Bill Clinton saying we have a special relationship with Israel, even before that actually. But I thought like that's like, okay, yeah, that's politicians politicking. It was really unfortunate, and I think very gross to do that, like literally right when the mosque was being raided, and there was clippings of people saying death to Arabs and singing like a really gross anthem, and he's like, I stand with occupiers, basically. That was personally, I was like, this is gross. But it seems like it wasn't just me. Like he like materially dipped in the polls right after that. So that surprised me. It seems like there might be a shift that maybe we should keep an eye out on.
I mean, I understand.
I don't know what I learned from that, but I just was like, that's really interesting.
I agree. Like, I think most of these candidates, Adams, I'll exclude, like of the top tier, I think most of them are quote unquote like to the left of the batch that were running in 2013 during the de Blasio cycle. Christine Quinn, foremost among them, who was basically undone by not just running a flat campaign, but also like being seen, I think rightfully, as a fourth term for Michael Bloomberg, basically, because of her working professional relationship with the then current mayor. I do think it's interesting because like the only person more vocal about being, I don't know more, but at least as vocal about Israel-Palestine was Eric Adams. And he seemed to get, if anything, a boost from it. And I think it's because he calculated that he's going after the more reactionary elements within New York City to put together like a, you know, an aggrieved,
Isn't
like,
he going?
Go ahead.
Is he going to retire in Israel?
So
Isn't that what
he
he
said something
said?
about wanting to go. Isn't it like Israel occupied land in? I forget.
Golden
like
Heights, I think it was.
No.
So that's sincere. Actually, I don't quote me. I was gonna do geography live.
No, you're fine. No, Yang had said, what is it? Yang had said he will always be at work on behalf of New Yorkers, whether he's in New York City, Washington D.C., or Israel. And like you said, that blew up in his face, I think, because of his presentation as like a progressive everyman. Whereas Yang, I think, was consciously trying to be any social like antagonism we have, we can just squash it with cops or the military or like the IDF, I suppose. The one thing I'll also say on de Blasio's behalf is like he was the first mayor in my lifetime whose answer to poverty and homelessness and mental illness wasn't just to throw those people in prison. Like it's not the correct answer to say just let them gather up in Penn Station and Grand Central and out on the street either. Like you need a comprehensive plan, not just for pre-K, but for housing and mental health care and, you know, all these things, a jobs program. But yeah, Giuliani, Bloomberg, and it seems like Eric Adams have a housing and a jobs program for these people, which is to say prison. And that, you know, Yang has also touched on not wanting the people who are most crushed by our current socioeconomic system just to be seen by tourists because that's bad for business. I don't know.
I also feel like I haven't been keeping up as much lately, but like I know there was like really big strides with no new jails under the de Blasio administration as well. Like they were really able to push like the construction of a new prison in Brooklyn. But yeah, I guess like when I jumped in, what you two were expressing is that the state of affairs is really dismal. But I guess if we're going to take dismal, like Gerald said, I would rather not have some kind of program where, you know, you're rounding up homeless people and then putting them in prison and cleaning up the city. Like that's what Giuliani did. And, you know, sold it as a positive. Wild.
Tomas, wanted to ask, like, obviously, like you're familiar with a lot of these figures. I think like especially I would say like Andrew Yang, just because he had like a national profile going into the mayor's race. But from like following things like online, like the dynamics at play, like the implosion of the Morales campaign, I'd say the implosion of the Stringer campaign, the late surge for Maya Wiley, the weird dynamics between Yang and Adams. What if anything have you learned from watching this dipshittery, I guess you could call it, just play out in public?
The mayoral election?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's hard to like get any lessons from it. I would agree with Dominique. Don't start your union, like a couple of weeks before election day. Start it early. It's just, it's like all these candidates, for example, that supported Diane Morales, right? Like thinking that she was like an actual leftist without actually doing any sort of research into her background, where she worked, like what her actual beliefs are. Also, like the propensity of usage for like this overly academic, like leftist language that is just completely detached from like how actual like people talk or think. And that doesn't speak to like their everyday experiences or like material interest. Also, I think there's like a lot of people in New York City that are like like people of color, honestly, and people that have been there for a long time, that are not as left as this like new like gentrifiers, right, that are part of like the professional managerial class, and that come in with this like, again, this language that I'm referencing, and that don't know how to like move these voters that like are going towards like Adams, right, and people like that. And then I guess the last thing is just like the weaponization of like identity politics, like watching someone like Eric Adams that like, I believe he actually said something like, I will never play the race card, right? And then, like his words, not mine, and then goes and like makes like race, an issue like throughout the whole campaign to like hide, what is a blatantly corporatist, and pro-police agenda. It's like, yeah. And just like the left's inability, what's supposed to be like the bastion of the American socialism to like, I don't know, like coalesce around a single candidate or a semblance of a single candidate. It's like atrocious, honestly.
Sure. We have 2% reporting, so very early returns. Eric Adams is at 28.5%. Catherine Garcia, who I guess was kind of like the moderate Scott Stringer, like the person with, not that she did Me Too stuff allegedly, but that she had the most experienced background, but just didn't want to push as a progressive direction. I think famously they said that she got computers for the sanitation department because they were still using pen and paper when she took over in 2014. So hopefully we're all getting new computers. Maya Wiley, 21.1%. Andrew Yang, 11.3%. Scott Stringer, 5.8%. Only 2% in, extremely early. We got 98% to go, extremely early. But right now, the big three are Adams, Garcia, and Wiley. We haven't really.
I was really thinking. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I don't know. I really thought that like, because I remember during the during the national election, the presidential election, people kept using the like, well, Joe Biden's going to go further than Bernie Sanders because of name recognition. I was like, who does not know who Bernie Sanders is? But okay. But I really kept hearing that among certain circles. So it's like, okay, if that is like a truism of electoral politics, I expect that of Andrew Yang, because it's kind of, now that New York is small, but it is a smaller scale because it's localized. So just like by way of geography, it's smaller than a national election. So it's like maybe he has a shot, like he's not running for, the offices of all 51 states and however many territories we, colonize. But So with that, I was like, okay, I think Andrew Yang has a real shot because like people know Andrew Yang. He has a national profile. He like got pretty far um into the campaign in 2019, 2020. So I was like, okay, well, I think he might actually win this thing. So then to hear those numbers, I'm really surprised. I like actually want to study the moment his star fell because I'm really surprised that Andrew Yang is not pulling more numbers. This is not an endorsement of Yang, by the way. I am not Yang Gang.
Yeah, I'm looking
I'm
at the numbers right now, and like he is like not doing well at all. He's like fourth
so
place.
strange. I'm so curious on that. I'm gonna look at this now.
Dan Morales is just like not even like registering.
She's polling below, not polling, she's performing below guys I've never heard of until maybe 3 days ago in Raymond McGuire and Sean Donovan.
Burn.
That, you know, that's not
I've
great.
never heard of Sean Donovan.
Damn, what happened? I guess.
You know who I did notice who's running for office? Curtis Sliwa? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Who?
The founder of Guardian Angels, the guy with the red beret. Do neither of you know who Curtis Sliwa is?
No.
I used to listen to like morning talk radio, not Rush Limbaugh, but I did used to listen to morning talk radio like maybe 4th, 5th, and 6th grade when my dad used to drop me off. Just me, not my dad, just me. I wanted to listen to politics in the morning at 4th grade. But I would remember there would be, you know, like segments with Curtis, and he would talk about the Guardian Angels, and he was just such a character. And I don't know, I feel like he's such a fixture in not New York politics, but just like New York characters. He's very much like a cop wannabe. Are you looking him up right now?
Me? No.
He's like very he's like very
I don't want to know.
He's very
anymore.
Yeah, well, he's running, and he's very much like along the lines of Eric Adams, very reactionary. He I saw one of his like flyers, which is like, don't defund the police, refund the police. And I was like, refund them what? What are we
budget's gone up.
What did we
twice.
take?
Every year it goes up. Every year it goes up.
What are we refunding?
Every year. You can make it the next thing. Death, taxes, and the police budget goes up. Those are the three things.
Those are the certainties of life. Well, we're working hard for that, not to be.
I wish someone would. I was thinking about it, like if I was like a clever whippersnapper, like New York City poll, I would say like, oh, you know what, you guys, like I'm having a come to Jesus moment, and my party has just gotten so out of control with defund the police. We need to restore the police budget to its 2019 levels, so that so that the deep cuts from 2020 and 2021 when Biden got in there, they go away. And so we're going to restore to 2019. We're going to bring it back to the way it was before all this. Who's with me to restore to the 2019 levels of police funding? And you know, and
then they'll do the math real quick.
Yeah, that's why I don't run for things, because I would waste people's time with shit like that.
Harold, you should run. You should have run for mayor, dude.
Me? I'd probably do better than Diane Morales from the
returns
I'm looking at.
You would have been polling probably like beating Sean Donovan, dude.
I don't know if I could go that far. I mean, this is Sean Donovan we're talking about.
I think you would go pretty far, especially if your platform is housing.
Yeah, and I think you could even be beating a Raymond McGuire.
I'm flattered, Tomas. I mean, that's this is the highest praise.
Who knows? You might
running for office.
You might have even like surpassed Stringer at this point.
As a person, probably. But
yes,
a whole 6%, man.
Yeah. Oh
wow.
Yeah,
I
don't know.
like
I'm
two
curious
people
why
who
no one
supported Scott Stringer, and that was it.
Well, my thing, like, I'm always curious, like, why no one ever calls bullshit on their thing. It's like, oh, you believe that the police budget's been cut 2 years in a row? Okay, let's restore it to the 2019 levels. Will you put your signature on that? Of course they wouldn't, but I don't know. The other thing I'm curious, what is it? We didn't really get into her too much. Maya Wiley. I know I compared her to de Blasio because I think that's her best comp, is backed by one powerful union and progressive organizations late in the game. And just kind of like, that's the thing though, like de Blasio had that one thing he wanted to do, which is universal pre-K. Like for all the black pilled people who say like the mayor is just, you're the biggest clown in town, he did do that one thing, and he didn't like criminalize poverty in the way that his predecessors in my lifetime had. Maya Wiley, I don't even know what her one big thing is. I know that
me neither.
Yeah, like I know she's for like being like a good person and a mom, and I know that she says progressive things on television, but I could say progressive things on television. Like I would be bad at it. I'd be much worse at it than Maya Wiley. I'd be a spaz, but I could do it. What is her thing that she's doing? Does anyone know what the Wiley platform is?
No.
No. I do know what you're talking about in terms of like being a good place. Like that's literally what she is running on.
It's good vibes.
Like, it's time for New York to have a mother. Like I'm a mother. And I'm like, that's excellent. I'll let my mom know. That there's gonna, we're gonna get another mother, hopefully, maybe.
Honestly,
but I'm just like, I don't know. What's up?
I will say, because like Tomas,
for sure.
You were talking
I mean, that's like all of like the Clinton.
Well, Tomas was talking specifically about gentrifiers who come in with left academic language, and they do seem to be flocking to Maya Wiley pretty hard. And I would suggest that most of them do have mommy issues of some kind. So it might not be a total surprise that she's the beneficiary of so much white master degree having progressive support.
Yeah, like, and I'm like very curious.
Yeah.
Well, she's also, I do know this, she's also a civil rights lawyer. She did work for de Blasio actually. So like, I don't think your comp is all that off. But I remember she did say this one thing that made the rounds when it was during a debate or maybe a town hall. Don't quote me on this, but she was asked like, oh, how will she be different from de Blasio, I guess, and was to the effect of that question. And she said that she will be different. She said she would be different, and then someone like shot back at her, is like, but you like worked for him, and she's like, yeah, and I left his administration like 10 years ago, so that should tell you everything about me. And I was like, that's a real good like that girl was me line. Like Kamala, she brought the heat there.
I see.
But I was like, still doesn't tell me everything about you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
but it was a good line. It was a great line.
I read this like political piece on like her work at the mayor's office, and like she was like a huge like a fighter for like keeping public records like private and off like the hands of journalists and citizens. I was like, this is not the person that I would want like in office, like somebody that's like trying to protect like like the public from like I don't know, like getting like records, I don't know. I was like, this is off.
Hmm. Was she or was it Morales who was like the charter school
That's Morales.
person?
Yeah.
That's Morales.
Yeah.
Also the landlord.
Yeah, like so this is like where I feel betrayed. And I think we can make this connection too with Florida politics and Miami politics. Because I don't think I've ever like expressed this to you, Tomas, but I have to Gerald, is that like I will do my research. So I'm like not entirely the type of person to get swept up in hype, but I do think I don't know, I get like sensitive when like people really do present as like the best candidate and like the candidate that's gonna like support like the big three, like housing, Medicare for all, and like childcare. Only to then like kind of find out that that's like very much it's very much strategic positioning, and you know, even in the ways that they're saying that they support it, it's very shrouded again in like language that gives them deniable plausible, what is it, plausible deniability. I inverse, yeah, that gives them plausible deniability. But I felt that same way with I'm blanking on his name. The you know, DeSantis's the Democratic nominee. Why am I blanking on his name?
Andrew
Gillum. Yes, yes. So really early on, it was like him, and then I think also might have been Beto too. Like it was just like a whole wave of like these like local politicians who have some kind of national name, and like they're progressive. You know what I mean? It was like that wave. It was like Gillum, Beto, and Stacey Abrams, like very similar like positioning. Yeah, very similar positioning. And then I felt like Morales also fit the mold. I mean, once I realized, I was like, oh, like basically it was really good marketing. It was really good marketing because I'm like, again, not that I'm saying I take things at face value, but like I will at least want someone to point me in the direction of the progressive candidate. So like, and people were pointing me in the direction of Diane Morales. So I'm just like, okay, great. Like, I guess, you know, this is who I'm going to be following. And then it seems like the more you actually do follow, the less you realize that she's as progressive as initially billed. But yeah, that's very frustrating for me as a politics observer. And if that happens to me, like, sorry, one of my lights is like wonky, so it's like on and off. But if that happens to me, that's someone who's like generally more in tuned, what does that mean for someone who is just like going about their lives like unengaged in politics and just taking it at face value, or like what the news is like, you know what I mean? Like I just feel like that's so grimy. I'm probably just like explaining normal politicking.
I feel like it creates like disengagement, and it's not just an American thing.
Yeah.
Even in France right now, like there were like regional elections, you know, like municipal elections or whatever, and like 2/3 of like the electorate stayed at home. Like that is a huge amount anywhere, but in Europe, you know, where there's like usually much more bigger turnout than the United States. I mean, that's, you know, unprecedented. And not only that, but like both Macron's party and the far right, like Marine Le Pen's party, like they both underperform, right? And those are like the parties that are like usually at war with each other, and the traditional left and right wing parties overperformed, almost canceling each other out. So there was no clear winner. And like Macron's whole thing always is like, I am like the anti-far right medicine, right? I like vote for me or we're gonna get the fascists. And like people are not like responding to that anymore, but they're also not even responding to like Marine Le Pen's like just insane like xenophobia and like politicizing everything either. They're just like it's just like the like almost everybody's tuning out, and then it's like the traditional voters that have backed like the institutional like left wing and right wing parties are the only ones that are like that I keep coming back to the polls, and that's like 1/3 of the electorate. It's ridiculous, and like, that's what happens in America too. People don't feel that there's like any actual stake in politics, and the people who mostly participate are people that can somehow be convinced, or people that are, like find it entertaining, or part of like their identity to participate, or people that like are paid to, honestly, you know what I mean? But like the vast majority of the electorate are like, fuck this, like why would I participate on this? It's all bullshit. Like, I keep voting and like nothing ever happens.
It's more of the same for them.
Yeah.
Like also, I was just gonna say, like, especially like in the Trump era, like I think it became clearer to me that there's a lot, like the reason that Trump was appealing to people on an apolitical level is that a lot of people pay attention to politics the way they pay attention to TV shows or music or social media or whatever. Like reality is just another show that they're watching on television. And Trump, like because he would do so many goofy embarrassments or whatever, put on a good show. Like everyone was addicted to the Trump show. I think that if that's your only, like, if you're not hoping for anything, it's harder to be disappointed. But for people like you were saying, Dominique, like Diane Morales, who are clearly trying to position themselves as champions on issues, which is to say, I actually care about changing the outcome of these injustices. Like, let's say, like Maya Wiley, for example, who like seems to be like she's going to be one of 3 going into round 2 that has a legitimate shot of being the mayor. She's riding on like a wave of enthusiasm because AOC and Jamal Bowman got behind her. What's going to happen if like there's another like Amazon, like HQ3, and AOC is on like with de Blasio, AOC is on one side of the issue telling them to like get the fuck out of town, like you're not going to gentrify this neighborhood either, and Maya Wiley is saying like, well, we can have a just Amazon here, like in the city, to get like promote good jobs, but like community.
They pay $50 an hour, folks.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, and it won't be because Maya Wiley's a bad person or she's a fraud. It'll be because property developers run shit in these cities, like they do. Like they are very deeply pocketed. I think basically you could say at all 50 state legislatures, half the politicians work almost exclusively on the interests of property developers and property managers, consciously or unconsciously, just because they know what the pressures would be if they ever took on those kinds of interests. So I guess the question, for diehards like us is, how do you get a base of people at the bottom who are willing to go to war with them too? And that's not a question that, I don't have the answer to that question because it's the question, but one of the ways you can do it is that, there's also a lot of people running there's like a ton of, in New York City, a ton of people who are running like as real champions on lower level offices, city council, assembly seats, Senate, that I think like in the interim time, like if you build out that bench, you won't have to just rely on one person. Like give yourself some options, like grow out the bench, grow out the base, and take it from there. I don't know. That was it.
Alongside
profound, girl. Too profound.
And he's running, folks. He's running. That was his pitch.
I'm running
I think the gas station too, like in terms of like
Joe, you should go. Or Dominique, why don't you run?
Yeah, you should run.
Okay. It's right.
I get that
a lot. To go, like go anywhere.
I get that a lot. Hmm.
Oh,
I'm trying, I just like feel like it I don't like, I'm just like not equipped for it. I think I would be easily burned out. And because I guess I'm like in the same camp as like Gerald. It's just like I just like no. I mean, it's really nice to think about. It's nice to think about in terms of having a base and having resources to back up your campaign positions. But like exactly like Gerald was talking about, I was like, I think I really want a groundswell, or like I want, you know, like a whole city council filled like with DSA candidates, you know, like, or like from the bottom up where like it's just so strong and left, and we have, you know, we're aligned in positions like housing and healthcare, that like then if I, you know, run in a bigger office, it's not so much and it's not so much top down, but working in conjunction, and it's much larger where they can't like root out one person or a couple of people. And that's kind of like how I would do it. Basically I'm saying I'm lazy and I want the work to be done for me.
I wouldn't
Before I do the hard work, we all do the hard work together. No, but yeah, I really do get that a lot. If people think I should run, and I'm like, no thanks. I'm very much of the school of, I guess, you know, making propaganda for the people who, you know, we are aligned with and, you know, want to make changes with. But I don't think I could be in the position of like actually leading, because then if it's not in the conditions that I want, I'm just gonna be like, well, I'm not gonna argue with you. Like, you're not putting this up. And what if I'm like the only person who's like trying to like make sure that this place isn't gentrified and everything else is not in my favor, and I end up de Blasioing? I can't have that.
what if you?
So yeah, I want like a really strong network of
just
yeah.
know that you are probably not tall enough to drop a groundhog from your like mid body like portion and like
right.
murder it in the process. So you're
Right. Yeah. No groundhogs will be hurt under my administration. That is a definite guarantee. And I think that's all I can promise at this moment.
His political career should have been over right at that point. It should have just been, I would have been like, fuck this guy. By the way, Diane Morales has overtaken McGuire and Donovan.
No, not Donovan.
Yeah.
Oh, she's pulling through.
She is at fourth. No, she's not. Yeah, she's at fourth place right now. No, sorry, she's at fifth place.
Oh,
okay. So going back to Maya Wiley, because I was genuinely curious, and like I know, like for people who are tuning in, and you know, I shared like I'll be on here and people know my thing is maternal mortality, morbidity, and that's like one thing that I feel like I've heard about with Maya, because she is the mom candidate.
Yes.
So her healthcare, which I wish it just was like part of like the New York Health Act, and it doesn't seem to be. I'm reading it now, and she's proposed a sliding scale city health insurance plan to the tune of $1 billion annually to be available to 246,000 people who are uninsured or ineligible for Medicaid, Affordable Care Act, and other programs, regardless of immigration status. Her plan describes a number of funding mechanisms, including repurposing city funds like NYC Care, the city's current program for uninsured New Yorkers, and state Medicaid reimbursements and finding administrative efficiencies. Wiley has a policy paper specifically to address maternal health, particularly for Black women who experience maternal mortality at far higher rates in circumstances that are more often than not preventable. That was a strange sentence. And she's allocated $4.35 million to build birthing centers at all public hospitals and one on Staten Island's North Shore, targeting communities of color. The proposal reads, okay, perfect. That's it. But I guess like my initial thoughts, I think it's good considering the circumstances. I know with regards to birthing centers, there is a pretty big movement in the birth justice coalition to have, you know, another birthing center be open. There used to be 2 birthing centers in the entire New York state. And they were both in New York City. One closed down during COVID, and there's just one operating birthing center. And there is a big push for another one to be opened up in my old neighborhood, actually, in Riverdale, Bronx. But birthing centers, as opposed to like hospitals, they are kind of like midway between like a home birth and, you know, having a hospital birth, and it is led by birth workers like midwives and doulas, and I do think there is a lot to be gained with having that as a resource or an additional resource in terms of like access for different like birthing options that, you know, would facilitate a really healthy birth outcome for both the mom and the baby. So I do think that's like pretty good. The 46,000 number of people who would be covered under insurance, it seems a little too low for me, which is why I would rather the Universal Health Act, which was not passed here in New York. So I would say, like, if you were mayor, I would at least leverage whatever I had to push for that. But if that's not the case, I guess Medicaid expansion, that's what it seems like. That's what that's pointing at. Or Medicaid expansion, regardless of citizenship, is decent. I just don't like that number. I wish it was everyone.
Yeah, it's not a big number at all, in my opinion.
No, 246,000. Like New York has like 9 million people. There's a lot more uninsured people than 246,000, especially like after COVID, where so many people like their insurance is tied to employment and people like lost their jobs. So there's definitely a lot more people who would need insurance and who wouldn't be, you know, covered under the Affordable Care Act.
I just looked it up and it says 28% of working age adults in New York City, ages 18 to 64, or more than 1 million people are uninsured.
Yeah, so $1 billion for 246,000 people to be insured annually, that math is not entirely cute to me.
Yeah, it's insufficient.
Yeah, I think so. I do like the birthing center initiative. I would just like to see how far that goes though. But yeah, I was really curious to know, like, what's the mom candidate stand? Where does she stand in terms of maternal mortality? I would not want to know where Eric Adams stands.
Oh man, every doula
on that realm.
Every doula paired with a cop so that we can shorten the school to prison pipeline to the womb to prison pipeline.
Oh God, you know, that in a very dystopian future, that does not sound that far off.
I will also say Dana Rubenstein just updated that Joe Loda, who was the 2013, he was the guy who went against de Blasio on the Republican side in 2013 just walked into Catherine Garcia's victory party, and I guess is going to be hanging out with her. She's hard for me to place.
Garcia?
Me too.
Yeah, I think look at these results, because the thing about
Wasn't she like Team Yang?
well, so she and Yang teamed up to basically say, if you're like, Yang said to his father, this was kind of funny. It was kind of, I mean, what the alt-right might call beta, or you know, like whatever, yeah, cucked or whatever. Yang was trying to form a like I guess not a kind of like a soft unity ticket with Garcia, and like I think that was like 2 days ago, was doing a rally with her and said, if you're supporting me, number one, I want you to rank Catherine Garcia number two. And Catherine Garcia goes next and she says, I'm not really going to tell my supporters what to do. This is about transforming the city. And you could just see Yang just stone-faced. Like, you can't reciprocate. They're in a very non-reciprocal relationship, I'll say. And if
Feminism.
If 12% of people 12% of people are like basically told by the guy they were supporting to put Catherine Garcia number two, I think it bodes very well that Catherine Garcia could very well be the next mayor. She's frankly
Wasn't like Adams like, this is like Jim Crow.
Well, Eric Adams literally said Yang and Garcia are teaming up because they don't want to see a black man as mayor. Like basically.
Yeah, so that's
this. Yeah.
Yeah, so Mr. I'm not gonna play the race card.
Right. Said.
What's that? You just cashed that in.
Yeah, that was racist exodia. I'd say that was all 5 pieces of the Yu-Gi-Oh God card. Oh man! And now Morales is officially ahead of both McGuire and Donovan.
I wish we could rank Eric Adams' son. Like, well, I can, but like, I wish we could rank Eric Adams' son. Like, let's make Eric Adams' son the mayor. He actually lives in New York.
The one, this is the one who everyone's hypothesizing, like, let his dad pretend that his apartment was Eric Adams' apartment.
Dude, that's not a hypothesis. Yeah. That's like,
I mean, yeah.
Is it really?
It's filial piety.
I mean, yes, but still, it's like, how did he think this would go over? Or like, I want to know the sequence of events that led up to that profile, because he seemed super caught off guard, or like he was just like this. It's one or the other. It's like, you know, they were like, hey, we're stopping by like 15 minutes out. And then he was like, oh, wow, people are coming to the house. I got to book it or something like that. Or he was just like, oh, this is good enough.
As I understand, I think what happened was the story broke, right? Obviously, like they leaked it, you know, like somebody had it in the Opera file and they leaked it. The story broke. And then Adams, I think was like, no, I actually live in New York and I can prove it to you. And then he led them to like that like apartment. And what happened was he called his son and was like, yo, because, you know, you needed to prove residency. You needed to be like you can't just rent a place and, you know, like you have to prove that had been like there before. So I think he called his son and was like, hey, so I need a favor. And then like people were like, you know, like people found like salmon and like meat, you know, and like the fridge, and like Eric Adams is a vegan, which I also think is funny. That's like kind of woke. I'm like, what? Then like they were like taking pictures of like the shoes, and like people went to like his son's like Instagram, and like it was clearly like the shoes that like his like the same 3 shoes that like his son always wears.
Also, the fridge looks like my fridge. It's like
some
condiments, some water bottles.
It's like processed salmon and like water. Yeah, I'm like, come on, like you want a person that lives like this to be like your mayor? I mean, that's how I live, and like
that's housing justice. You offer up your home to someone who needs one. That's honestly that's as Christ-like as it gets, I'd say.
That's what I'm saying, dude.
See, I like it. I like it. It really brings him down to earth, especially the bedspread. I remember seeing that picture where he was just like standing next to the bed. I was like, what 1985 fresh hell is this? Like, what is this? He looks so janky, but you know what? He's human like all of us.
Oh.
A very reactionary.
Dave Wasserman, the Twitter election expert, says, I've seen enough. Andrew Yang will not be mayor of New York City.
Damn.
Oh, that was so dramatically read.
Yeah.
He's pretty good. He usually has it right.
Sorry, Angie.
Wow. I want to do the case study. I literally want to see the moment like it fell. It seemed like when he, endorsed Israel, but I want to like know what word,
I know
at what minute and second did that happen.
I know when. It literally, like when they hired like the former executive director of the Florida Democratic Party, like the fucking grifter that like destroyed the Florida Dems.
You got to give Dominique some background here.
Yeah, it's like just this guy Juan Peñalosa, who used to run the Florida Dems, like ran it further to the ground, got hired for some reason to run his super PAC, and there's like a direct correlation of like Yang starting to dip in the polls when like this guy coming on board.
You can.
What if this guy's like actual goal is to destroy from the inside out, and like he's actually doing a good job?
You can draw a straight line from hiring Juan Peñalosa to saying things like mentally ill people have rights, but you know what? So
can we talk about this? Can we like talk about this? I remember this is like when I made Gerald follows me on Twitter and knows my big pronouncements every 3 weeks. Yeah. It's very cyclical at this moment. At this moment, but I just made it like another pronouncement.
I follow you too, yo. I follow you.
Oh yay! But I don't think you see my pronouncements. But I always am just like, I'm leaving this platform for mental health reasons. And literally the day I did that was when that whole thing broke, and I saw all of you all my mutuals talking about mental health and Andrew Yang, and it's like, but I like told myself I'm staying offline, and I told everyone I'm staying offline for mental health reasons, and now like this whole story broke. Anyways, it's not about me. But I remember when I saw that, I was like, dude, that's so eugenicsy. I couldn't even get around it. I was like, you're like, we're going back to like 1920s when like the word moron was a medical diagnosis. Yeah. Which is like still like, I don't think people should use it, and maybe I shouldn't have used it. Sorry. But I was using it in context.
I also thought moron these days was just a nicer, cleaner way of calling someone a dumbass or like a dipshit.
No, it was like a legit like diagnosis. Like people would be diagnosed as one or diagnosed as slow, and like sterilized.
See, this is
which is like real messed up.
This is why men are smart not to go to the doctor, because they're skipping out on getting that diagnosis.
Okay. I was like, this could have gone so different, but then I was like, wow.
So did he say this during that debate? Where did he say it?
Where did he say? I just remember the clip.
So he was speaking specifically about Stop Asian Hate, but he was talking specifically about like how a disproportionate amount of these attacks happening on Asian Americans are coming from people with mental illness. And so he basically set up an antagonism between Asian Americans' right to walk the streets of New York City in safety versus a mentally ill person's right to be mentally ill. And it's, like you said, this has Peñalosa energy radiating from it. It's just the thing that you would never just say out loud, except I was going to keep saying it out loud. Like, for example, my mom's very Irish, so she keeps everything in the freezer. So if I saw that she put something nice that I gave her in the freezer, I was gonna say Irish people deserve to have rights, but you know what? So do we. Like anytime something like that happened, that was gonna be my meme.
Oh, you're gonna
Yeah.
use the catchphrase.
Yeah, that was gonna be my meme.
In Southern.
Anytime something happens to me, I'm gonna make that my response. Yeah. So then he doubled, but then like, you know, he said after that debate that, okay, I could have worded this better. And then came back again and said, actually, no, I couldn't. Mentally ill people.
Well, I don't even understand what he's trying to go with that. Like, what rights don't mentally ill people, like, I want him to be specific.
He doesn't even know. He doesn't even know
Yeah.
what it means.
Yeah. That's the thing. It doesn't make sense. It's
You're
like,
giving him
okay,
too much
well, if you
credit.
see someone in crisis, if you see someone in crisis, or if that's what we're talking about, then we're talking about lack of resources to help these people. It's not the people themselves. Like, there are conditions that are made that leave both groups vulnerable. The person who's attacking and the person being attacked. And I don't actually think that it's like as reductionist as like mentally ill people, because we know that like mentally ill people are actually more subjected to violence than to be violent themselves. So like, I just like, I wish, yeah, you're right. I'm giving him too much credit because I'm like, I need him to be clear about like what's he even saying, because it's very debunkable. It's like, why are we pitting two people? Like, why are we pitting two groups against each other? When also with Stop Asian Hate, it's like, we're talking about rhetoric, but rhetoric that is also backed by like centuries of, you know, US antagonisms, imperialism, foreign policy, you know, even representation of Asian people in media. Like, all of that goes into why there's an increase of hate crimes against Asian people. So it's just, I don't know. He kind of pulled an Eric Adams with the Stop Asian Hate, where Eric Adams was like, you're trying to stop the Black guy from being a mayor. And now, you know, Andrew Yang kind of was just like, I'm Asian and I deserve more rights than mentally ill people, as though like Asian people can be mentally ill or have, you know, need help and need access to mental health care. Well, so sorry, that was a real long rant.
When he doubled down, I'll be quick. When he doubled down, he specifically said, I was kind of right. Yeah. So people come to New York City as tourists. They see all these mentally ill people all around on the subways, on the street corners, and then they go home, say, don't come to New York. There's too many mentally ill people, and we got to do something. He was very Trumpy, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's a very Trumpy thing to say.
This is a very Trumpy cadence.
I miss him. I miss him so much.
The world will be doing the accordion hands. The presidency.
Mentally ill people now. They have rights.
Stop. You're doing it too well.
Used to be a medical term. We don't use it anymore. Melania knows the term. Should I use the term? No, I'm not going to use the term. But people see them. They see them on the trains.
By the way, folks, I just checked. Yang has 1.2 million Twitter followers. Guess how many Twitter followers Eric Adams has?
Well, obviously 6 million, because he's doing.
No, you're wrong.
How many?
Come on, guess. Yeah.
He seems like someone who would get canceled quickly on Twitter, so I'm gonna guess like 500.
He has 12,000 to 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Twitter, not real life, folks. I know it's cliche, but like, god damn it, it's true. Doesn't mean shit.
I thought he was like definitely in the six figures. Like, I was gearing up to say 6 figures.
12,000. He is nothing.
So Eric Adams, as of right now, it's 10-15, 33%. Sorry, 30.3%. Garcia and Wiley basically tied at 21%.
This man is not even verified. He's gonna be fucking mayor of New York.
He's
ridiculous.
leading in Brooklyn and the Bronx, which if you're running a progressive campaign, you need Brooklyn, the Bronx, and Queens. Garcia is ahead in Manhattan. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Well, what's up? Where was the DSA in this?
So the big hope was that Jumaane Williams was going to run, and wisely he decided to seek re-election as public advocate.
He was like, "Fuck this."
I think so I was sad to see him not run, and then looking at this race, he frankly, if you were going to crown a winner that wasn't one of the actual candidates, avoiding this embarrassing scrum, is Jumaane Williams.
Yeah.
Who has not been asked to comment on whether the mentally ill have rights or whether people should see them. Good for him.
As people?
Yeah. I mean, the way the party is set up, if you win one term, you're going to get 2 terms because the Republicans are not going to run, they're finished in New York City, at least for the time being.
Yeah.
So this is going to be 8 years of Eric Adams. Probably.
Oh, this makes me really nervous.
Yeah, the era of Biden and Adams. This is the time to grow out the bench. I would say, just don't focus on the prize. Focus on growing out your bench.
Yeah,
out your base.
Yeah, and this makes me really nervous because we had the summer of uprisings last year.
Yeah.
And some really critical or crucial rather. Conversations were happening around, what even is criminality and what do the police actually do in the community or society writ large, and really crucial conversations. And now we have someone who will effectively increase the budget and not just increase the budget, but really, really uplift this institution in a city where it's already they're already showing that they're not going to tolerate the summer of uprisings, because wasn't there a random sweep of 12,000 police officers in the street one weekend for no reason? They're just out and about in New York City, and it's just walking. I don't know if they were doing raids, but they were uniforms,
making their presence known, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. But it was I think it was no, because Memorial Day weekend was really rainy. So I think it either was the weekend before or the weekend after. One of the weekends where it was pretty nice. It was the first really nice weekend of May. You know what? I really want to find this video. Now that I said I'm not gonna be on Twitter because of my mental health, I guess Andrew Yang won something. Dom's back on Twitter.
Do you think he'll be worse than Bloomberg?
Adams?
I think so.
Really?
No, in one respect, he'll be better, which is Bloomberg would make it a point to go after public sector employee workers and the unions specifically to try to bust them up or break the back of labor. I think Adams has, and I don't think it's because Adams is a better person than Bloomberg, but since the crash of 2008, that type of politics doesn't really play anymore. Painting public sector workers as fat cats because they get to work with dignity, or at least more so than private sector workers. Most people, especially since the crash, are I want to work with dignity. I'd like to have dignity too. Where do I go to become a public sector employee worker? I think in that one respect, I think Adams is going to be better than Bloomberg. But if there's you're right in that respect. Yeah. You were saying, I wouldn't be shocked. If there was ever another Occupy style event or a summer of protest, I wouldn't be shocked to see Adams mirroring Bloomberg 1-to-1 on what the
Right.
response was.
Yeah. So that's where I was just like, I'm very nervous.
Yeah.
I'm always about minimizing harm and death at the hands of the state. That's also going to be on my platform. But then that's the thing. It's like I can't run for the state and be like, I don't want the state to hurt people. Right? That doesn't work. Where's the dialectic in that?
Oh.
No.
Let's find it.
Yeah. But I actively do not want that to happen.
Oh, man.
And I just feel like, I don't know, someone who's such a cheerleader and like very different in tone than de Blasio, where I feel like de Blasio is very supplicant out of sheer fear.
Can I say, like, it's not popular to say, he was the best mayor of my lifetime. Like, he really was.
Well, then
he made it legal. He was. Quite honestly, he was.
Is not very stiff, you know.
He's not. Well, that's the thing. Giuliani, like, was like the first to figure out, oh, you can just criminalize poverty. You can criminalize anything.
America's mayor, baby.
And they'll cheer you for it. He put the emergency response center in 1998. He put it in the World Trade Center. And the NYPD said, why are you doing that? We were just attacked there in 1994 by a group called Al Qaeda. They set off a bomb in the lower structure.
Yeah.
Why are you putting the emergency response center in the middle of a terrorist target? And Giuliani said, fuck you, I'm Rudy Giuliani, and we're doing it. So he did it. And then in 2001, there was no emergency response. It was very ad hoc because the emergency response people were trying to flee from being in the buildings themselves.
I remember that. And
then ran up. Can you imagine if a terrorist attacked a building and people found out the reason there wasn't a formal strategic real command center response to it was because Bill de Blasio put it in the building that was attacked over the objections of the NYPD or whatever. It said that this is a horrible idea. It'd be the end. He'd be like, you can't trust this guy. He's a buffoon and a clown. Giuliani walks around like, you know,
not inaccurate.
He's a fucking
he is a clown.
He's a fraud. Giuliani's a fraud. Like
I was talking about de Blasio, but it also.
I'm saying if de Blasio had done that and then a 9/11 happened under de Blasio's watch, come on.
Yeah, he would not show his face.
Bloomberg.
Yo, do y'all remember when de Blasio's daughter was like fucking shit up during the VLM protests, and then she got like arrested?
Yeah.
And then de Blasio like shilled for like the police captains that were like talking shit about his daughter.
Yeah.
So low, dude.
Yeah.
I'm
like, that's your dad. That's your
daughter.
Like,
yeah. I can't.
I'm saying that's still better than Bloomberg going on
100%
on radio and saying we know where to send the police because we know the areas where the crime is happening and we know the types of let's just profile people on the radio.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You know, I know it's a weak field, but in a weak like in the lane, I don't know. I don't want to say it off. You know, whatever. In a weak field,
very weak field.
Very weak field. De Blasio has been the best mayor of my lifetime, and I don't mind saying it. I also like when he dressed up in all that Brooklyn Nets gear and just looked like an absolute doofus. I felt seen in that moment because that's how I feel. I look. That's how I feel like I look like the way he looked, like that weird energy. I was like, I feel like this is how I come off to people all the time as this like, what's he doing kind of guy. Really? All right. Well, I felt represented.
Not at all.
Okay.
Like Andrew Yang tried to like go troll him at like the YMCA where he works out, and then like a bunch of people from like a nonprofit were waiting for Yang like with like signs to like bully him.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was so funny. Yeah, like all the videos of Andrew Yang just getting like relentlessly bullied throughout the campaign are so funny. Like, why weren't people doing that to Adams?
I don't know.
I think people feel connected to Adams. Like, I don't know. Like, Adams feels like there's like a very strong contingent of like people who like are Staten Island, who like voted for Trump, who I feel like there's a crossover for Adams.
But these are like non-profit people that were like protesting Yang. It was like all like non-profit like staffers and stuff.
Which I mean, I'm on their side.
No, me too. But I'm cool that you protested Yang, but like, why didn't you not like also train in
Right.
firepower and Adams too? I mean, I
Right.
think Yang sucks, but I do think Adams is probably like worse.
Yeah, for
So it's,
sure.
I don't know. I feel like Adams got like
A pass,
a
maybe.
little bit. I feel like even in the media, like people didn't really focus on him until like the very end.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know who he was until he was telling me my child was hiding cocaine in books.
That was when I knew I didn't like him. When he
Well,
was
not
like,
even cocaine. He
yeah.
was saying it was weed. So that's when I actually knew it.
At the height of COVID, when everyone needed weed the most, this guy's busting the city's kids.
My fictional child is hiding drugs and a Glock in his bag. Yeah. I think if my kid showed up with a gun, the first thing I would ask is, where did you get that? Like, how did you even come into possession of that? Not like, oh, my kid is bad, man. That was very Joe Biden, but you know what I meant.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Oh man, who is the Joe Biden?
Man, whose gun is this?
I guess
Biden?
I guess it's Andrew Yang because he keeps doing gaffes and like goofy shit, but he like just.
Well, he keeps getting.
I think Biden would be Wiley.
The magic of Biden is that, like Trump, he never suffered for it. He's kept going. So it's hard to say.
I mean, like the voters, like the electorate that backed Biden is the same sort of electorate that backs Adams.
Yeah. I would agree with that. In the primary, I would agree with that. I would bet if you were voting in a primary and you had your choice of Biden and Sanders and all them for president and then Adams and all them for, I think that the Biden-Adams voter would be a pretty strong contingent. I feel like it's pretty 1-to-1.
Yeah. I mean, like the PMC, woke votes not going to Adams. They definitely want to go to Biden.
No. I think they would be split between Morales and Wiley.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would vote for Wiley.
Yeah.
I think, like, practically speaking, out of everyone,
yeah,
I think Wiley's the best candidate.
I know it's 10:30. I don't want to keep people too long. I feel like we kind of have a picture of the race. AOC was doing a live stream, and she said that she voted Maya Wiley won, and her second choice was Scott Stringer. And I think people were rightly upset. Like, I think people who don't believe really that the Gene Kim accusation carries much water, I guess, are basically now not turning on, but like, I guess looking askance at that number 2 vote as, could you have said, like, basically, why did you wait till election day to say you still think Scott Stringer is deserving of like a top billing on your ranking? Like, and the reason is because it would have been a PR nightmare to say so. Like, if you're saying I'm going to rank Scott Stringer anywhere close to 1, you're basically saying I don't think that the Gene Kim allegations carry much, weight. I wanted to, because like, I don't know what ultimately happened. I was one who like was supportive of Stringer, and then once that happened, I basically stopped and never really came back. I was one of those. But to hear that was very like, I don't know. I feel like maybe I need to like toughen up a bit and like smarten up a bit, in the sense that like I always imagine if the New York State Democratic Party wanted to take out AOC, not on policy, they would like bribe like a former staffer to say that they were traumatized by AOC, who ran like a toxic workplace, and she would go home, or they would go home crying and feel bad about themselves, and like someone from within Dem leadership in the state would say, like, it's in your interest. Not saying you have to do this, but if you were to come forward and say AOC traumatized you or made you, feel less than in some way, I don't know. I feel like I need to, I guess, smarten up on when things that like are important, like the well-being of women, like it's AOC must think that that was a cynical move to rank Stringer second. If you're ranking Stringer second, you're basically saying I can't come out and say he's my number one choice because I know why that sounds awful. But I
That's
also,
interesting.
like I get why you go Wiley one because she's not accused of, like sexually assaulting someone, which was the accusation 20 years ago. But to come out and say now I would rank Scott Stringer second on election
That
day,
is kind of strange, actually.
I don't know what the point of it was. I would have if I was her, I would have just kept that to myself.
I wouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a little strange that she.
Especially now that he's like
Yeah.
at like 5%.
He was in single digits. He's in single digits. Like the camp, like he got a big boost from UFT. Then the accusations came out. He got a few more, local unions, and that was kind of it. He lost Jamal Bowman. He lost, I think
I do remember that. Yeah.
Salazar, I think, was behind him, and then they all defected. And
yeah.
they all got behind Wiley in June. I don't know. I don't want to comment on things that haven't come out to light yet, but I don't know. If AOC was going to endorse Stringer, but for this, and felt like it was still worth mentioning that she ranked him number 2, I would like to know what the thought process behind that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's because I think I started to hear about Scott Stringer because of the accusations.
Yeah.
I wasn't even really paying attention, and I think when Bowman, recanted, I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not gonna be a pick of mine. But yeah, that's really fast.
Even as a strategic vote to keep Adams out, it wasn't like very smart because he's like polling very poorly. He's like poorly. It's like it's like just stupid.
He's in 5th place now. Well, you could have just said I ranked him 5th just to keep Adams out.
He's in 5th place? You sure?
Top 4 right now. Adams. Wiley is now ahead of Garcia. Garcia in 3rd. Andrew Yang and Scott Stringer in a distant.
Oh wow! So Morales is like out of the top 5.
She's 6th place.
God damn, dude.
Oh my gosh.
Man,
I like that campaign was so. I really wanted to support. I feel so personally betrayed.
Well,
especially when I heard about the charter schools, I was like, oh man. Yeah, I feel like it was very much like it was maybe I was like the key demographic, and like I was one of the people that they put into well, not me specifically, but like my marketing profile would be like one of the people they tested in what are those things, focus group, instead of it being more genuine than I was led to believe it was. I still don't again I say I don't want to cast aspersions because I just don't really even have a full grasp of the details because there are no details. A lot, I think 3 of the statements that have been released have been in very vague passive voice, very guarded as to what exactly went down. And I do understand if there is something that it could be re-triggering or re-traumatizing for someone, why you would want to be careful with the language and what you reveal, but it's still, I don't know, it imploded in a way that I think people who supported her deserve to know what happened.
For
I think that's my last word on it. I mean, people who should know, people, because she had a decent amount of support, and she was able to get like a pretty sizable, amount of money with small contributions, Bernie style. So, there are people who are invested in this campaign. I'm sad. I didn't realize I was super, I'm talking about it now. I didn't realize I was more into Diana Morales than I initially thought. I don't know. I thought she was a good candidate, or like kind of like what Torah said, like the language was nice. It was a siren's call. It was very pretty.
It spoke to you.
It did speak to me. I am not an NGO.
You were successfully marketed too.
I was. I think I don't like. I think that's what like bothers me, is that I don't like, because my full disclosure, my undergrad degrees in public relations. So like, I don't want to be on the other end of public relations, is basically what I'm saying. At least not for a very cynical reason. You can public relations me if that means, we're going to get housing and healthcare. And I've said this like 4 times now. But those are my things. Obviously reproductive justice, but within reproductive justice, there is economic justice and housing, and healthcare and childcare. So that's my platform, and I'm here to announce that I'm running.
Well, here's another lesson. If you are going to have an overtly woke campaign, just get ahead of it and unionize your campaign.
Yeah.
Just announce a unionized campaign, because your campaign staffers will follow the lead of your rhetoric, and they will try to unionize.
Yeah. And I think they should.
Get ahead of it.
I thought that was really great that like when Bernie announced that he was unionizing.
I was in the union.
That's so nice. Yeah, I was wondering, because when did you join the campaign? Was it like midway or
November 2019?
Oh, okay. Well, you had a full year, so that's nice.
Yeah,
that's really nice.
Yeah, I wasn't like one of like I was like, I would say maybe like there was like an initial wave that came, and then middle wave, and then like
that's what it
and like the last people came on like post 2020. And then in April it was all over.
I know.
Actually, I think we were on staff until like May, because we still like worked on like some Amazon stuff. I remember we worked on like the Wisconsin Supreme Court race and stuff like that. So Bernie paid our healthcare all the way up until
November. Yeah,
it was nice.
So that's why I say like start it out early, because then like even if there is a loss, people have a good enough cushion to at least be protected.
There was no union like in our contract. There was no obligation for him to do that though.
Right.
Like, that's just him being like, there's a pandemic and I don't want these kids, to like not have healthcare now. That that was very nice of him.
And that should be the norm, to be honest. We shouldn't like have like, our little benevolent socialist grandpa to do it for us.
I know.
Should be the norm in terms of these kinds of things.
Yeah, apparently
that's another episode.
Apparently Buffalo, New York elected a socialist mayor.
She won?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Apparently. I mean,
a win is a win. Eric Adams is going to be a mayor too. We need all the good mayors we can get.
India Walton.
That's a good one. That's good to hear.
She also, I'm just checking, she has like 4,000 Twitter followers. I'm telling you folks, Twitter, not real life.
In Buffalo, that's all the people who live in Buffalo.
That's your entire constituency.
But it's the largest city to have a socialist mayor since like 60 years. So
wow, what's the first? I feel like it was somewhere in the Midwest.
Milwaukee, wasn't it?
Milwaukee.
Yeah, because I know they have a really strong like history of that.
All right, what did we learn today?
Yeah, what did we learn?
I don't know. Unionize your staff if you're gonna be woke.
Yeah.
Or
if you want to be like Eric Adams, just don't be woke at all.
Don't be,
and you'll
don't be woke. Don't be-
See,
win.
my response to that is be authentic, but I guess that's the naive.
Yeah.
don't be woke.
It's like-
Don't do growth. Don't do growth. Have a son just in case you need, like, you know, to bed.
A place to crash.
Yeah, you got a place to crash if you're running for mayor and
with the press.
City. Yeah. To get him a real fridge. Cheap fucker.
Mhm.
With real deli meats.
Yeah.
Well, no real deli meats because he's a vegan.
Oh yeah. He's gonna be the
Yeah.
meanest vegan I've met, I gotta say.
Seriously, when I heard he was vegan, I was like, dude,
What's the point of
what
being
is
pro animal rights and then anti
human?
people rights? Like, what's
I think there is a decent enough crossover of like antisocial has its own thing, but I do think there is like I'm not saying this about Adams at all, but I do think there is a pretty strong undercurrent sometimes with environmentalists to be fascist or like anti-people or anti-growth or, you know, like neo-Malthusian. I feel like I run into those currents. I don't think that's what he is.
So that, like,
but I do know
becomes like planetary managerialism, basically.
Yeah. Instead of just like, you know, we need to break up big agriculture too, not just like eat broccoli, which we should be eating broccoli. Yeah, it's me plugging the vegan agenda.
Does he like
Well, vegetarian, because I like, well, actually not really. I slipped. Oops.
Same.
Anyway, so I'm fired from the vegan.
I'm vegetarian too. I can't do full vegan. But does he take like testosterone supplements or something?
He's very muscular.
He like exudes like testosterone in a very toxic way. I'm like,
oh really?
There's no way this dude is. Just,
I'll defer to you too because I don't.
He's been at the beach for his last few campaign stops, like showing off that he works out a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe he ups the protein.
Well, you can get a lot of plant-based protein.
Yeah.
You know, if you're really into like, you know,
beans and lentils.
Yeah.
That's all I fucking eat, and I ain't got no fucking muscles.
Well, you gotta lift too.
Yeah, you're not taking the city's homeless population and throwing them into the
He's like lifting them into the catapult. And...
Yeah.
No, that probably is gonna be his, you know, mid-year press campaign. You know, when it comes time to, you know, clean up the city and, you know, because I know it always breaks my heart when there's like the polar vortex and it's wintertime. And I know de Blasio did do something last year with the polar vortex and like, you know, extending shelter hours or even opening up more shelters. I feel like the inverse of Adams will be exactly what you described, Gerald, is him picking up the homeless and doing the polar run at the same time.
Oh.
Yeah, that's going to be his thing.
Well, out with the old dystopia, in with the new. Yeah. It's not that much different from the old one. Right?
No, it's not.
Yeah, this sucks.
I mean, it only sucks. It only sucks up until our contribution. You know what I mean? Like if we're like not doing anything and we're just watching it happen, then it sucks. But it like sucks, but we're also trying to do something about it. I'm just trying to keep the hope alive. Again, that might be naive.
Ever since the Michigan primary, if you're on the left, like every election night is like Groundhog Day for being self-pissed off, basically.
Right.
All right, guys. Well, I think we gave it all we got.
I think we covered everything. Whatever we learned it.
Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, New York is just, I guess what we really did learn is that New York is like the title suggests, an extremely goofy place with regard to its political economy, and the manifestations of that are our candidates. And that will be something that we on the left will have to, tackle.
Oh, we have a question.
People are asking questions?
Yeah. Jameson asks, what does this election mean for Yang now? Does he just go back to CNN? The correct answer, Jameson, is who cares?
Yeah, we don't fucking know, dude. But we're sorry if we missed your question. We were not paying attention.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. First of all, very sorry to Jameson, and big shout out to Jameson.
Big shout out to Jameson.
Who's Dark Marin on Twitter. Woo woo. Give him a follow. I agree with your who cares about Yang, but like, yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen. I think he needs to be embarrassed one last time because he's really not getting the hint. So I think that's my answer. Is that like?
Well, that's the thing. Like this is his first embarrassment.
No,
like. Well, I mean, like, I know that, like,
he performing the presidential.
Right. He springboarded by running for president. I know that he was disappointed to have, like, dribbled out in Iowa. Yeah, he got, like, 1% of the vote in Iowa. And he was like, oh, I can't believe it. It's like, Andrew, how far did you think this was going to go?
He should primary Schumer.
You were like, you're the opposite of handling him with kid gloves.
Yeah. I think
you're the opposite of handling him with kid gloves right now. You're just like, I don't care.
Andrew,
what were you thinking? Come on.
Andrew had a good bet going. Well, honestly, this kind of gave me a little bit of hope. I'll say this. If you look at early like favorites for 2024, among the GOP faithful, if Donald Trump doesn't run, Don Jr. is a heavy favorite. And second to Kamala Harris, if Joe Biden doesn't run in 2024, is Michelle Obama. And I definitely started overthinking things at Planet Fitness of like, everyone's given up on like a vision of like real transformation, that things could actually ever be materially better, or we're just going to circle the drain with our friends. And after Michelle and Don Jr. trade places, it'll be like George Clooney and Oprah, and we'll just like, go down the silly season drain. But then watching like people like Andrew Yang was in first place. Andrew Yang was going to be the next mayor just by going to goofy bodegas and say, eating the bad sandwiches and saying Times Square was his favorite subway stop and going on the roller coasters at Coney Island. And the more he did stuff like that, the more people were like, oh, this guy's not serious, which makes me think that
people... my favorite New York subway station.
Yeah, this is, this gave me a little bit of hope that even if people can be, I guess, can be easily persuaded in the beginning by name recognition, they'll still take a second look at the guy who wants to put a policeman in every apartment just to see what you're up to and keep an eye on you.
My prediction: Yang is going to primary Schumer, obviously get owned, unfortunately, or fortunately, why? Who gives a shit? He's going to go back to posting, and then in 2024, there's going to be two insurgent candidates that are going to win the primaries. Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy,
I think
versus Hunter Biden.
So you're joking, but
I'm not.
Mike Lindell, I'm in a town with several.
It's gonna be Lindell DeSantis against Biden Harris, but it's gonna be Hunter.
In these mega bars, like especially like in the fall and the winter, people were talking to each other in like a wink and a nod kind of a way about how comfortable their My Pillows were, that they had like gotten them, and they're like, you know what I really am enjoying is my Pillow. And people are like, I'm enjoying my Pillow too. And it was kind of this like, we're being lorded over by an illegitimate government, and we know it because we both got the pillow. And I have a vision of Lindell having one like a Trump style rally, and he holds up everyone holds up their pillows, and they say, no, we've woken up. and we're gonna put Sleepy Joe to rest on a my pillow. And everyone's gonna come and like with Joe's face on it, say we're gonna put Sleepy Joe to bed with their my pillows. I just see it too easily.
No, this is America.
Yeah, people want to get their owns in.
Okay, and I think on that note, we should
Yeah.
end it.
All right.
Mhm.
All right.
All right,
Good night,
folks.
y'all.
Let's do this again.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, we should do this
Very
again when they
silly.
announce.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could.
We
Yeah.
should do it again when they announce.
What
it.
other election should we follow?
Oh God.
Or just-
I don't know.
Well, we still there still has to be like this is gonna be announced in days, so we could do like a
In a
debrief of
week,
this
yeah.
one.
But they think by this time, like by next Tuesday, the 29th, that we'll kind of know who the winner is.
Right.
I think we kind of do now, but
Well, I'm on the record saying I'm mourning Diane Morales' my interpretation of Diane Morales's campaign, and team Wiley, because I do think there's some things to be had there.
See, miracles sometimes happen. Let's see.
Mhm.
Let's see.
all right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.